From dog tags to ownership, heroes take the lead. Stories of veterans building dreams with passion, drive, and speed. From service to success, we're here to inspire the quest. Dog tags to ownership, we're the best. Take the prize.
Battlefield to the Board. This is Dog Tags to Ownership, the podcast where veterans share their journeys from serving our nation to leading a business. Hear inspiring stories of grit, growth, and the entrepreneurial spirit that drives those who serve to succeed. Tune in and take the first step toward your own mission.
Military One Percenters, welcome to Dog Tags to Ownership, where once a week we interview veterans who charted a path towards entrepreneurship. Our goals are to share resources, advice, and success stories about starting a business, discuss strategies for building financial independence and creating your own path, and most importantly, build a community to support each other through the challenges of transitioning from service life to civilian ownership. Welcome to episode 30. We've made 30 episodes, 30 weeks. Boop, boop. This is our recap episode where we're going to recap episode 27 with Loosen of PDS Optical, episode 28 with Wesley Hutchinson of Whiskey Run Customs, and episode 29 of Christopher McKinney of OpSynergy. Let's get it started. Matt, any big takeaways before we get into the 3 episodes? Any big takeaways that you had over the past few episodes, or any big takeaways now that you are somewhat retired?
Now that I'm growing a beard.
That is true.
30 episodes, that's awesome. Quite a milestone, quite an achievement. I'm sure that we would have thought we would have achieved back in November. Maybe something our spouses didn't think we'd achieve.
100%.
I think the big takeaway for me was getting back to the roots of what this podcast is about. I think for a while there, we were kind of talking fairly high level with some extremely established entrepreneurs. So some of it, getting to sit down and talk with Wesley and just talk about, some of the basics again of business ownership and rolling up your sleeves and putting in some of the work, all consistent with Christopher, and I think to an extent with Sean. So I just enjoyed getting back to, kind of those initial people that we had on the podcast.
I totally agree with you. I thought that was awesome to talk to both of them and then also talk to Sean. I mean, his was a little bit different where he took over a company that was already established from his dad and his uncle, but he's taken it to a different level now that he's taken over it. So it's still like putting in the work, understanding the business and how to make it better. But I agree, like just talking with Wesley and Christopher, it's funny, I'm down at the beach, we're on vacation. And so I met Wesley down here, Ocean Isle at the market. And last night we had pizza for dinner and some of my parents' friends were over, and I was telling them like, hey, I met this guy here at the market and he was on the podcast, and they were like, oh yeah, we know him. This stuff is really good. I was like, yeah, it is really good. And he came on our podcast. They were like, that's so awesome. We're going to have to go talk to him and let him know, like, we know you and like all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, like he, but it just goes back to like what you're talking about. Like he does some great stuff. And I was on his Instagram last night, like just showing them his stuff and all like the furniture that he makes and all that stuff. And people are like, oh yeah, we got to go talk to him. Like we need some stuff. So it's just, that small network of folks and veterans that we all like word of mouth and help each other. But I've said it in a few episodes now, it's like the 7 degrees of veterans. And it's really funny, like talking to them. Some of them are not veterans, but they know him. But being at the market here and seeing his stuff and talk about his stuff, and like tourists come down and talk about that. So just getting back, like you said, to the roots. And I'm sure like for you, having that as you transition now on terminal leave and you're really rolling up your sleeves with the business, really talking about some of that stuff with folks over the past 2 episodes in particular, and how you've had to really roll up your sleeves. And I know you talked about with Christopher, when you had to go out to the house and pull down the tree and do all that stuff. And now you got another purchase coming up with another duplex. Just continuing to build your business now that you're in retirement and having those conversations. I just think it has been really important for both of us. And getting back to like what you said, the mission of the podcast is really building that community. And I think 30 episodes in, I think we've really built that community. One of the coolest things just to talk about 30 episodes in is at the beginning, I was reaching out to everybody, like shooting my shot, as I say, just sending an email to people. And now we're at a point where people are reaching out to us and they want to come on the podcast and they want to tell their story. And help other veterans and military members with entrepreneurship through their stories, which is awesome. I mean, we're booked out through September at this point with interviews, which I never thought when we first started this it was going to happen. When I had this idea, I wasn't sure if we would get to 30 episodes. I wasn't even sure if we would get to 10, but being at 30 and knowing that we're going to continue this and get to a year, it's pretty awesome. So I just want to say at the very beginning, I appreciate everybody listening and following us and telling folks about our podcast and getting it out through word of mouth, because that's really what's kept us going and really helped us build the community. And that's the number one purpose of this podcast, is building that community for us.
Sean and Christopher, right? They both reached out. I think with Wesley, maybe you reached out to him. It's kind of cool. I mean, with Christopher in particular, I remember reading his submission, I guess, to the podcast about being on his transition process. And I mean, he really opened up on his episode about like how transparent he was at certain points, but being able to kind of reinvent himself and self-improvement journey is continuing that, sounding a little bit cliche, but that really was roots, getting back to the grassroots effort of these folks.
Yeah, and so I guess we can get into just recapping the episodes. I think I messed up at the beginning. Wesley Hutchinson was episode 27. So Wesley Hutchinson, episode 27 with Whiskey Run Customs. He's a medically retired Marine Corps gunny sergeant that basically, if you listen to the episode, he got back from Afghanistan, and instead of buying an AR-15, he bought a wood lathe and really just started making custom wood art, and furniture, and his charcuterie boards that he says nobody can pronounce when they come to the table, or his turntables, all those things. But really, like, he just took a passion, got medically retired, got a job, and was like, I can't do this because of all of his injuries and things. And his wife was like, let's just make this a business and let's take it from there. And he's now taken this business and does a lot of things, goes to markets and shows and everything in the greater Wilmington area. And he said, he doesn't need a job at this point. That's how well his business is doing with Whiskey Run. So I think, though, for me, the biggest thing I took away is just taking that passion and the craftsmanship that he has when it comes to wood art, and making that into a successful business, and just continuing to grind.
Now, I know we talked a few times about it. He's at the point now where, he doesn't even go on like Etsy or some of these sites full time because he'd have too much, right? Like too much merchandise to push out. And so I think he's really struck that balance between owning a business, but also again trying to enjoy whatever retirement sort of looks like for him now. Just a really neat story, like you said, about following a passion again, doing what you really doesn't seem like work. And he's certainly found that.
Yeah, agree. It's just great talking to him. I think he's an awesome person, and just does great stuff. So, and then episode 28, Sean Loosen of PDS Optical. He was actually referred to us through Barrett Boats company, Evacati PR. So that was pretty cool. Word of mouth again. People connecting us to help us build our community, and connecting folks to be part of our community. So I thought that was really cool. The Evacati, connected us to bring him on. Again, just another story. He started at West Point, stayed in the Army for 5 years, got out, worked on Wall Street, did some other jobs, and then, his dad and his uncle had the business of PDS Optical, and asked if he wanted to take over it, and he did. And what he's done with the business since he took over it is just grown it exponentially from where it was. And he talked about he doesn't know if he can grow more because of, they're in 40 states. They have a lot of the government contracts when it comes to for veterans for eyewear. And he doesn't know what else they can do, but he's looking. He's always looking to see how can they make the business better. And the one big thing I took from him is he took his military leadership and his experience and used it to make his company better. He brought a mission statement to it. He, brought in, I would say, like, what is like esprit de corps or a culture, command climate type atmosphere to it, um, to really bring all of his employees together and make them want to be a part of the organization. And then he did it also through giving back to the veteran community through the honor flight, and then sponsoring that. And he wants to continue to do that. So I just thought that was a great story of another veteran who his business helps veterans, see better, as he said a few times, but also they give back through their philanthropic adventures with the honor flight and paying it forward to our veterans.
Talked about always having that entrepreneurial spirit, knowing he wanted to do something as he transitioned out of the army, but wasn't entirely certain what that path looked like. But it always kept coming back to him. So I think when that opportunity came about, he absolutely seized it. And he's had folks come on to talk about franchises or ownership through acquisition. And that's a kind of a similar model that he took, right? As you touched on, an existing business that he rebranded, um, really focused on the people, really empowering the workforce to have a voice as well, right? Like he got them to kind of vote on what type of something that we would model in the military. Absolutely done that, and can't wait to see, maybe go visit. We talked about it. He's not too far from the Bourbon Trail there in Kentucky, so again, we may need to go out and take a look at that. So, looking at some bourbon factories.
And the other thing about Sean that I do need to mention is he is also a Bunker Lab graduate. And so that would be our, I think, third Bunker Lab graduate that we've had on the show. So another just great program for veterans, military members who are getting into entrepreneurship and really want to hone in on those business skills is utilizing Bunker Lab and then the different things that they have associated with it. So he even talked about the CEO circle, and I know Kim talked about that she was a part of the CEO circle. So as you're looking to get into entrepreneurship, business owner, just another great avenue to help you in terms of schooling and building your networks. Just a great program. Give it a shout out for folks as well with Bunker Lab. And then the last episode 29 with Christopher McKinney. I just want to start off with that episode was rough. I will own that one. I did a uncut Thursday on this, but the gremlins are in my computer. I dropped about 5 times. Christopher dropped 1 time, and it was probably talk about rolling up your sleeves and having to get at it. Yeah, that was the hardest episode I've ever edited since we've been doing this in our 30 episodes. It was really hard for me to get that one on the street, but I do think it was important. It was an important episode, and I really wanted to get it out. So I know that there was some rough parts in the editing of it, but I think Christopher's story and what he spoke about was important. And I think it's really important for current military members who are thinking about getting into entrepreneurship and want to do something else. So he talked about Army Ignited, but other services have that as well through their cool. I will say this, I was very surprised when I did a little bit of research, but the Army has the best program when it comes to credentialing assistance and tuition assistance. They give the most to the soldiers. They do a yearly amount that you can get where other services don't do that. The Air Force does a one time, and then the Navy has to be based off of what your job skill set is and what you want to get when it comes to credentialing assistance or tuition assistance. And then the Marine Corps is a case by case basis based off of your MOS for you to be able to do it. So I was very impressed. Army is doing a great job and giving back to its people and with credentialing assistance and tuition assistance to be able to go get those certifications. And one of the certifications you can do is your PMP, but there's also like welding certifications that you can get through that. There's HR certifications that you can get. So any type of business that you want to start, you can go on the Army Cool website or the other services Cool website and sign up for a certification. So I thought that was awesome that Christopher brought that to light as people were looking to transition, and he really wanted to talk about transition. But then just his business as well, how he is. He said it was cliche that he's helping veterans through get their PMP. And I was talking to Katie about it, and she wants to get her PMP, and I was like, hey, OpSynergy, he does it, and so she was, going to look into it and maybe use her CA credentialing assistant stuff too to link up with him to get her PMP. Just a great way that he is also giving back to the veteran community through his business, which I thought was awesome.
I would love to have Christopher back on because he was just a joy to speak with, and unfortunately, lots of technical difficulties with that episode. And I think we shared that as it went along. There was a lot of sidebars that he and I had, but So many good lessons to share with, that's why I'd say I'd love to have him extremely down to earth, extremely humble, just like self-awareness about, just extremely like self-aware and being vulnerable and sharing those lessons. I know we've had some other guests come on and talk about other adversity that they've overcome, be that maybe some substance abuse or PTSD or a combination. And he's just another example of someone who's overcome adversity, created something, has had good mentorship, and now he wants to pay it back by being that mentor that he's had. Because, he was like, hey, look, I'll be honest, I wasn't super motivated to go through, utilize tuition assistance or Army Igniter, some of those programs that are offered. And he had mentors that pushed him in that direction. And he's so appreciative that they did. And that's what he's trying to do for us. So he can hopefully inspire one more person. That's really, Christopher's mission is obviously to grow his business, but really to help.
And the other thing I want to shout out is DogTags ownership website. Go visit it. We also have swag. You can see Matt and I are wearing our swag today. We try to wear it in all of our episodes. We finally got a customer. Somebody bought some of our stuff. I sent you a picture. Anybody out there, if you don't know us, what would be great is if you bought some of our swag and then sent us a picture, so then I can show Katie that somebody else bought our swag that we don't know. And then she said, if we do that, Matt and I can have our conference. And that's really what we want to get to next summer, is to do a in-person roundtable with everyone that we brought onto the podcast, invite our guests back, and have everybody come together and have people who wanted to get into business ownership and entrepreneurship, and have everybody come together for what I call a conference. But Katie says we can't do it until somebody we know, somebody that we do not know, buys our swag and that she sees a picture of it. So if you're out there, you don't really know us, you just listen to our podcast, buy our swag, send me a picture so we can hold our conference and everybody can come. It'll be a great time to talk about entrepreneurship and business ownership and learn from each other as a community, and the community that we're building of military one percenters turning their dog tags into ownership. Anything else, Matt, that you got that you want to talk about?
Like many of our guests, navigating what transitioning into retirement looks like. I've now utilized, I think, my permissive TDY. I'm technically in my terminal leave period. And yeah, just trying to stay busy in the investment properties and rent with that property. And then I'm getting started on our basement renovation, our primary house here in the next couple of weeks. So all the hard work was done by a remodel company, taking it through drywall. So I get to do all the fun stuff, the flooring and work. So you'll get to see it when you guys come out.
Yeah, we're coming to visit you, and we'll get there on Thursday. Hopefully you have an episode lined up for us to do in person while we're there. That was your one task for the week, was to get an episode lined up. So hopefully you did it. Fingers crossed on that. Yeah, and then finish here as you're getting into all your businesses, as you now transition to terminal leave. I'm now, the year behind you, working on that. So big thing for us with our Austin Sandcastle LLC is we got the condo that's on Airbnb that we're renting out. But the big thing is our property outside of Fayetteville. So been getting everything together for that, to go to Cumberland County to get a special use permit so that we can make that into an RV and boat storage lot. That's the next big hurdle for us on that. And then once we get that special use permit, we've already started to get some estimates to come in and do to ground out the road, set it up for that. So we're hoping to be in business for Austin Sandcastle storage lot by next May is my timeline that I have on that. So we'll see, and I'll keep everybody posted on how that's going. But yeah, I thought last 3 episodes, great episodes. All 3 brought different perspectives to the table, but all 3 leaned in on their military experience, whether it's from the Marine Corps, Army, officer, or enlisted, but leaned in on those experiences and how they built their business and really driving to make themselves better and make their companies better through their leadership that they learned in the military. So just great episodes. And episode 30, Matt. We made it to 30. Military one percenters, whether you're brainstorming your first business idea, already running a company, or just curious about where to start, Dog Tags Ownership is the place for you. Please hit that subscribe button to receive all new episodes. Also, if you know someone who has turned their dog tags into ownership, drop us a DM on social media or tag someone. We're always looking for new guests to bring onto the podcast. And as always, Military One Percenters, thank you for your service. Let's continue this journey and working together to write our next chapter. Until next week, keep pushing to turn those dog tags into ownership.
From dog tags to ownership, heroes take the lead. Stories of veterans building trains with passion, drive, and speed. From service to success, we're here to inspire the quest. Dog tags to ownership, we're the best.